Welcome to the Rediscovery channel. This is the channel where every week I and my good friend Stilgar, we take turns trying to come up with a topic from history that the other person hasn't heard about. And most of the time that turns out to be the case. And my name is Ivor Kovac, and this week it's my turn to try to surprise Stilgar. So I have something which I don't know if you've heard of this or not. Okay, I want to actually talk about a place. It's a country. I'm going to ask, have you heard of Mauritius?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Ah, I figured there was a good chance. Okay, what do you know about Mauritius?
Ooh, that it's off the coast of Africa. I believe on the east side of Africa. And I think they have a population of Africans, but also Indians, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
is
I
true.
actually have a colleague or former colleague who married somebody from Mauritius, a black lady. But that's how I started looking a little bit into what it is. But that's about as much as I know.
Okay.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I figured there was a chance that you might be familiar with this place, but I couldn't be sure. But actually, because this place used to be a Dutch colony for a while.
Oh, that makes total sense because Mauritius is actually a Dutch name. We actually have some royals called Mauritius. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the island is named after. Well, it's not just one island. Okay, so the official name of the country is the Republic of Mauritius, and the largest island, which is also where the capital city is and most of the people live, is also called Mauritius. But it includes. It's named after the Big Island is named after Prince Maurice van Nassau, and it said he was a stadtholder of the Dutch Republic in 1598. I
Okay.
don't I don't know what a stadtholder is.
Yeah, that's what I talked about on the Raid on the Medway. It's kind of like the in between. It's like when we were a republic, it wasn't a king, but later the Vanessaus they committed a coup and they killed the two brothers, the Wits, although they were never. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, stadtholder was kind of like the president of the
Okay.
provinces. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then the main island is called Mauritius, but it also includes the see if I can say this right, the Agalaga Islands, the
Okay.
Carajos Shoals, which is also referred to as Saint Brandon, and Rodriguez. So the size in terms of it's 2,030 square kilometers, and in miles, that's 787.65 square miles. And according to the CIA World Fact Book, it's almost 11 times the size of the area of Washington, D.C. And I'm going to just drop a few facts here, and then I'm going to get into the history. But the climate is tropical, and it's got warm, dry winters and hot, wet summers. The capital is called Port Louis, or Port Louis, which is named after King Louis XV, who was the king of France when the port became like the major administrative center. And you mentioned like the racial composition is a mixture of different groups. There's 2/3 or roughly 2/3 of the population are Indians or people of Indian descent. And then the next biggest portion after that is Black Africans, who they call Creoles. But these people are they're not just African, they're like a mixture. So they could be like they could be part French or something else. And then you have a very small minority of Chinese people, which is a relatively new population, and a very small minority of French. But the statistics aren't really clear, and they're not perfect because they stopped taking surveys of ethnicity in 1972. And then the languages, and this is according to the CIA World Fact Book again, you have something called Creole that 86.5% of the population speaks, and then another language called Bhojpuri, which 5.3% speaks, and then 4.1 speaks French, and then 2.6% is other languages, including English, and only about, actually, I think it's less than 1% of the population speaks English, but English and French are actually the official languages. And what I did some digging around, and what I found out is that the language they call Creole is actually derived from French, but it's got loan words in it from English and from different African languages as well as different Indian languages. So, and yeah, and one thing that I noticed is most of the population is Indian today. And I was reading like some of the different names, and they seemed kind of strange to me. Like they weren't the kind of names that I was used to. And you know, of course, that I have a lot of connections to India. So I figured, okay, this Bhojpuri, that must be the stock that these people came from. So I looked up, you know, Bhojpuri, and it comes from it comes from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, which are, you know, different regions of India. They're like Uttar Pradesh is like the worst part of India, the most dangerous, and it's a place that I've never heard anything good about. Nothing against people that come from there, but that's just what I've heard. And Bhojpuri is a Sanskrit-derived language, so it's an Indo-European language. So that would be, you know, I think that explains why the names are different, because it's a different kind of population that came there. And then the religions, let's see, we've got 48.5% Hindu, 26.3% Roman Catholic, 17.3% Muslim, and it's something that says other Christian, 6.4. So people, you know, probably getting mad at me for this info dump by now, but
actually, a Creole language is just kind of like a hodgepodge way of describing languages that have like several languages combining to form a new language. Because they also, I know in Suriname, they also speak Creole, but it's probably completely different than what they speak in Mauritius because it's on the other side of the world. It's just it's just basically languages that, you know, get recombined to form a new language. So
yeah, and it gets confusing for me because like the Hispanic countries to the south of us, when they say Creole, it over there in that cultural context, it refers to like a white person who was born in the New World. It means somebody who's mostly European, but they were just born in this part of the world. And they still use it like that. But then in Louisiana, there's another group of people that they call Creoles, which I believe is people that are descended from the old French colonists. So it gets confusing for me. And usually when I see Creole in a new context, I have no idea. So that's why I had to look it up, because I was like, is this Louisiana or is this Mauritius? But
according to the Dutch Wikipedia, it comes from the Roman languages in French, Criollo in Spanish, or Crioulo in Portuguese, and it means bread or bread there. Translating gefokt in from Dutch to English. So because there's usually an African slave element to it as well, being born outside of Africa.
And actually, that's what happens here. Okay. So, and I'm coming to that, but I want to say something about the dodo bird. Have you heard of the dodo bird?
All I know is that it went extinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dodo bird is it was indigenous to Mauritius, the large
really?
Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was not found anywhere else in the world. And when they first found Mauritius, by the way, there's no indigenous humans to Mauritius. So
so that's how it probably got eaten by humans, I'm guessing. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
We killed the dodo bird. Yeah.
well, actually, yeah, some of your ancestors could have been complicit because the dodo bird was driven to extinction when Mauritius was a Dutch colony.
Okay.
And the origin of the dodo, and this is where you can probably shed some light. So the origin of the word dodo is not clear. And what I have here is from this one website, which I'll put a link to below. It says it might have come from the Dutch words for sluggard, and the Dutch referred to it as a wallow bird. And another potential source is the Portuguese word for crazy, fool, or simpleton. And the dodo, when I was in preschool years ago, back in the 80s, dodo was an insult word that we would use to call each other stupid. Like all of our insult words were just pretty much different ways of calling people stupid, like dumbbell, dodo.
Yeah, but isn't also the implication that you fail to evolve? Isn't that kind of like when you call somebody because the dodo bird, it couldn't fly or anything, something like that? Isn't that kind of word?
It couldn't fly. Yeah, it couldn't fly, and it took no precautions to defend itself. Like it lived on the ground. It didn't, and it laid its eggs on the ground because there were no predators on that island. So they did nothing to. They had no defenses. Now I don't know how the dodo got there in the first place, being unable to fly. It could be that the ancestors were able to fly and they somehow lost the ability. Of course, that wouldn't be evolution. That'd be the opposite. You know, that'd be losing something. Or there's another theory which I want to talk about in another video. But there's this. I'll mention there used to be this myth of a lost continent called Lemuria that connected like Australia, Madagascar, and India. But and maybe if that's true, then some creatures could have come along that way before the land was submerged. But I have no idea. It couldn't have been brought by humans because there were no humans there when Europeans first came.
Well, maybe on the word side, dodo, I don't think there's anything, but Dutch has evolved quite a bit, unlike the bird. But the only thing I can think of is dood, which means death or dead. So maybe it's dead bird, literally. That could be why.
And so dodo was extinct by 1688 because people would hunt it and take its eggs for food. And also, when humans came, they brought cats and dogs and other animals.
And probably rats as well. They also like to eat eggs, bird eggs. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the dodo was just totally wiped out. So, and here I'm going to go through my history. And so the island was discovered in 1507 by Portuguese sailors, and mainly all they did was put like a resupply station there, like a hub that they would just kind of stop over on the way to India and back. And they never settled it heavily, but they called it the Ilha do Cirne, or Cirne. I'm not really that familiar with their language, but it means Island of the Swan. And then the Netherlands took it in 1598 and held it until 1710. And that's when the dodo was driven to extinction. So a guy named, and I'm probably going to mess up the name. I'm sure you would know how to pronounce it, but Wybrant Warwick. How do you guys say the W sound in your language?
They. It's probably Warwijk.
Vibrant Warwick.
Warwick? Okay, I'd have to look up how you spell it, but yeah.
Wybrant, and then his last name is Warwijck.
Yeah, Wybrant Warwijk. Yeah, okay.
Wybrant Warwijk was the first Dutchman who visited the country, and he renamed the island after Mauritius. He gave it the name Maurice of Nassau, Prince of Orange. And the Dutch, they mainly used it for raw materials. So there were these trees there, called ebony trees. They would harvest those to sell, and they would take animals from there, and including the dodo, until and that's all they did was they harvested raw materials, plants and animals until 1630, when they created the first settlement, and that was called Haven van Varvik.
Okay.
And even after this, the main interest was just plants and animals. So they're still going to harvest the ebony trees, but then they're going to bring all sorts of plants and animals in order to cultivate there in farms. And also, so they would grow food crops, animals, including pigs, and then spices as well. And the military presence that they put there was mainly to just keep the English and French from taking the island. And the Dutch East India Company was also involved in this. And then there's a governor, his name was Van der Stel, and he started to bring in slaves from Africa. He brought 105 slaves from Madagascar. And then the reason that the Dutch leave this place is because the climate was kind of rough, and there were a lot of pests, I guess insects and things. And I don't know, maybe you guys are just too white to live in such a sweltering, hot, tropical place with all the insects and such.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. But then France takes it, in 1715, and nobody's really there to resist them. I guess maybe they left their slaves behind. And this guy, his name was, oh my goodness, Guillaume Dufresne de Arcel, and he occupies the island for France, and they rename it the Isle de France. And then in 1734, they decide to implement a full plantation system with slave labor, and they're going to grow sugarcane, wheat, rice, cotton, coffee, and indigo. And they bring in African slaves from Mozambique. And then they decide they need skilled labor, so they start bringing in Indians to fulfill that function. These guys aren't going to be slaves. They're not going to be plantation holders either. They're going to be like workmen, repairmen, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, the French, they lose the island in 1810. The English just come and take it away from them. And the English wanted it because they were interested in India, and they wanted to have this island as a stopover on their way to India. And the English, they said that they told the people that we will respect your language and your laws and your local customs and all that. And they changed the name of the island back to Mauritius. And they try to kind of present themselves as more benevolent conquerors. But then in 1835, the English decide to abolish slavery. So they say there's no more slavery. But these plantation guys are still there. And at this point, most of the plantation holders, it's like some of these guys are Europeans, some are Indians that are running the plantations. Because some of the Indians, that came over as skilled labor, they worked their way up and they became masters themselves. But once slavery is abolished, they still need workers. So they institute indentured labor, indentured servitude, and they bring people over from India to serve that purpose. And around 1837, Indians are about 12% of the total population of Mauritius, but it rapidly shoots up to the point where they make up 2/3 of the population because of this indentured servitude. And they're given their independence from England in 1968. And I found it interesting about the relationship between slavery and indentured servitude, because in the United States, when we were an English colony, originally there was no slavery, but we had guys that had massive plantations where they were trying to grow cash crops, kind of like they were in Mauritius. And the first thing they did was bring over indentured servants for cheap labor, where they would offer to pay for their trip to this part of the world. but then you had to work for them for 7 years for free. And a lot of the indentured servants were just worked to death. They didn't survive to see the end of their agreement. Then when they were freed, they were given like maybe 2 or 3 bags of rice and be like, go your way. And those people had to just kind of survive for themselves with their bags of rice. And then eventually they might become an independent small farmer. And then there was some trouble with the indentured servants. There was something called Bacon's Rebellion. So then they instituted slavery because that was safer for the plantation holders than indentured servitude. And also they didn't have to ever let the slaves go. But here in Mauritius, it's the other way around. Like they start with slavery, then they go to indentured servitude. And eventually, like at some point, their main industry just becomes textiles. And today, I'm not really sure what their main industry is, or even if they have one. I think it might actually be tourism. Because like one thing my wife told me is that a lot of people go from India to vacation in Mauritius.
Yeah, my old former colleague, Dutch guy, married to a lady from Mauritius originally. They actually both live in the States now. But they would go there on vacation, and apparently it's a beautiful vacation spot. Like, it's actually not too hot, because of the ocean. And you have beautiful sea, beautiful nature, no dodo birds, but other than that, really nice. So yeah, I can imagine it's a beautiful vacation spot to go to.
You know, now that you mentioned the dodo bird, it brings to mind something weird. Like, there's this one part of the Travels of Sir John Mandeville where he talks about some island in the east, and he says that the people there are covered with feathers, but they can't fly, and they live in nature like barbarians. And I'm wondering, like, what if that is some rumor about the dodo birds?
Could be.
I have no idea, because then who would have found that out? Probably like an Arab sailor or an Indian sailor, maybe. And then like I stopped at this island, and there were these really stupid birds that couldn't fly. And then like telephone game, you know, or maybe Sir John Mandeville was just making stuff up completely from scratch. But the architecture there is pretty cool. I've seen some very interesting buildings. Of course, you have some Indian style architecture, especially with the religious structures. But then you have some other stuff that just looks kind of original and maybe even somewhat futuristic. And it's interesting because, you know, one of the things I think about a lot is traveling to other planets and colonizing them. And you know, Mauritius had no indigenous people. So it's kind of an interesting taste of, to me, something like that could be kind of like a preview of what it would be like to colonize other planets. Since there's nobody there, you're almost starting over from scratch when you go there. So
that's also why they took so many animals, right? Because I was reading up on it as well. They had no mammals except bats on the island. So they brought everything: goats, apes, rats, dogs, deer, everything.
And that's one of the things that happens in the Isaac Asimov stories. Like when the humans are spreading out and colonizing other planets in the galaxy, they find other planets that already are inhabitable and have life on them, but it's just like plant and animal life. And then one thing that happens is the humans bring their own critters and plants with them. And sometimes they end up completely obliterating the native life, and sometimes they save some of it and create special zones. So I wonder if Isaac Asimov, he must have looked at this too.
Probably. I used to fantasize about what if we could create some kind of fungus or something that could survive on Mars or Titan, one of these places, and could start terraforming the planet, you know, under those harsh circumstances, creating more carbon for us, so we get more of an atmosphere on Mars. Or maybe on Titan, start creating heat somehow, turning that methane into heat, and start colonizing for us that way. I think that would be cool. anyway.
Yeah, I wish it would happen. I really wish things would be done, and it's not being done because it can't be done. It's being done because the people in charge don't want it to be done, even
Yeah, and
though,
they're also so careful. Like they disinfect everything that goes into space because they're so worried that some contaminant might start life on a different planet. It's like, who cares? Like, what if you had some kind of bacteria that survives on Mars? Wouldn't that be a good thing? Wouldn't that be a fascinating scientific discovery? Why do we have to be so scared about stuff? Like these people, when they discovered, yeah, the dodo bird went extinct, but that's part of how you discover new places. Like it's a sad thing that the dodo bird went, but yeah. Anyway, yeah. If you just
yeah, I think
stay at home, then nothing happens. Yeah.
that's right. And I think that yeah, that if they kind of have that mentality in Star Trek too. But if we ever do find a world that already is inhabitable and has a stable biosphere, yes, we should be very careful. That when we colonize it, do all sorts of tests and everything. But if you find worlds that are just completely dead, which all the worlds in our solar system, they're dead. What difference does it make if you transplant something there? In fact, you need to, if it's a lifeless world, you need to transplant something there to make it habitable. You got to transplant a lot of things there because you're gonna need to make it a self-sustaining system,
Yeah.
complete ecosystem. So I think some of the stuff is stupid. I think also a
You
lot
know,
of
even I read a study recently that even in like South America, like in the Amazon forest,
Mhm.
they found out that there's way too many fruit trees to be there naturally. And actually, most likely, those trees were planted there by Indian tribes thousands of years ago. They were already terraforming the Amazonian rainforest. So even like the most unspoiled part of the world was already being cultivated by indigenous people. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? Of course, you don't want to create like one kind of monoculture where you just grow corn everywhere. You want to
yeah,
keep, so yeah, I mean, but these, like, for example, Mars, there's not a whole lot you can break, to be honest.
there's
Like,
nothing there
yeah,
to wreck. What are you gonna
yeah,
do?
no
Oh
dodo
well, the
birds,
beautiful
no
Mars.
dodo birds on Mars, as far as I know. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
but plenty of dodos back on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, man, but the cool story. I actually learned more about Mauritius. Didn't know it was part of the Dutch Republic. And maybe a small correction I read here on the Dutch Wikipedia
Okay.
that the French didn't take it from us. We left it in 1695 after it was hit by a hurricane and the economy crashed.
What I had is you guys left it in 1710.
Ah,
No, they didn't. Yeah,
yeah.
I
They,
didn't.
they left in 1710. There was a hurricane in 1695, and then 1710, the people kind of left to South Africa, Cape Good Hope, Cape Town. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the French. I don't think I said that they took it from
Oh,
you.
okay. All right. No, it was
They took
abandoned.
it.
Okay.
They took
So
it because nobody was there.
I just
To
assumed they took it because you mentioned French people, so that's why. Sorry.
Because French people like to take things like this.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, the English though they quite forcefully took it from the French, and then they were all like,
Well,
"We're
the
here
English
to
took
save
most
you."
of the English took most of our colonies as well. So, but yeah, and by the way, the French, well, they took the Netherlands even at one point. So,
I didn't know that. I heard that.
well, I mean, that's when Napoleon, right, who put
Oh,
his little brother in charge. But yeah, so
yeah. I bet his brother was a bumbler.
yeah, and he was actually liked by the Dutch people though.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and that's why Napoleon started to get worried because people liked him, and his brother liked the Netherlands or the Dutch. So um, he didn't. That started to create like a whole different episode altogether. But yeah, man, good story. I think we should probably close it, right? I think we
Yep.
have
That's all I
some.
got. Right.
Yeah, some good
Uh,
content. Learn something about Mauritius, new holiday destination.
if you're from Mauritius
Yes,
and leave us a comment,
for sure. Yeah,
let us know.
I just saw there's over 1 million people in Mauritius, so you never know. Let us know what's the best thing to see over there.
I think there's actually more people in Atlanta than there are in Mauritius. But yeah,
Still, you never know.
looks like a nice place. It does look like a nice country, and I think I forgot to mention that it's grouped with Africa. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because it's part of the same continental shelf. But it comparing with all the other African countries, it's got, including North African, it's got the highest standard of living, the safest living conditions, and the cleanest living conditions.
Yeah, you should include it on the map. It's way east of Madagascar, right? So it's
Yeah. I got a couple maps I'm going to put in, so everybody
nice.
can see.
Yeah, if you're from Mauritius, like, comment, and subscribe. If you know somebody from Mauritius, share this video with them. Yeah, we like y'all. So yeah, cool. Thanks, man.
Right.
Good story. Thanks for sharing that.